So, picture this, you're sitting at home, minding your own business, watching the news, and suddenly the anchorwoman is practically doing cartwheels because pneumonia cases are dropping faster than your New Year's resolutions. Everyone's celebrating like they just won the lottery, patting themselves on the back because last month's vaccination campaign apparently turned everyone into invincible superheroes. Spoiler alert, they celebrated too soon. Way too soon. Because wouldn't you know it, faster than you can say I told you so, people are back to complaining about flu symptoms like it's some kind of national hobby. And we're not talking about a slow burn here. Within a measly 3 days, a brand new virus strain shows up to the party uninvited and spreads with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for gossip at family reunions. The Center for Disease Control is standing there with their clipboards and fancy degrees, completely baffled, watching everything spiral out of control like a particularly aggressive game of Jenga. Things get so ridiculously chaotic that emergency rooms across the country are packed tighter than a subway at rush hour. There's literally not enough space for one more person. So what does the government do? They call in the army to set up field hospitals, because apparently when modern medicine fails, tents are the answer. Classic. In the middle of this beautiful disaster, a news presenter named Amy, who probably deserves a raise at this point, manages to score an interview with Dr. Campbell, who happens to be one of the country's top infectious disease specialists. Dr. Campbell's professional advice? Everyone chill out, stay home, and don't go outside unless your house is literally on fire. Very reassuring, doctor. Then, in a moment that's less esteemed professional and more terrified parent, she sends a personal message to her daughter Jess, basically begging her to find somewhere safe and lock herself in like she's preparing for the apocalypse. Which, spoiler alert number 2, she kind of is. Now, here's where things get interesting. While the world is falling apart and everyone's being told to hide in their homes, what is Jess doing? She's going on a nice, relaxing camping trip in the forest with her friend Sarah and their boyfriends. Because when there's a pandemic happening, obviously the best place to be is in the woods with zero cell service and a tent that won't protect you from a mild breeze, let alone a zombie. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything, as it turns out. The next morning, Jess wakes up to some seriously disturbing noises outside the tent. Her boyfriend, being the brave soul he is, goes out to investigate. Big mistake. Huge. He finds Sarah being attacked with the kind of brutality that makes horror movies look like children's cartoons. Before he can even process what's happening, he gets bitten on the neck, and not in the romantic vampire way, more in the your life just took a terrible turn way. Jess somehow manages to escape from the infected person doing the attacking, but the situation is grim. Her boyfriend is clearly not going to walk this one off, and she has to make the heartbreaking realization that he's done for. She helps Sarah up, and the two of them sprint to the car like they're competing in the Olympics, while more infected people start emerging from the trees like some kind of terrifying flash mob. Inside the car, things go from bad to worse. Sarah is bleeding heavily, and her condition is deteriorating faster than milk left out in the sun. Jess, trying to be optimistic in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, promises to get her to the hospital and insists everything will be fine. When she spots a gas station, she parks and tells Sarah to wait while she gets help. She runs inside shouting for anyone, but the place is as empty as a politician's promises. Then she hears police sirens. Salvation, right? Wrong. She runs out screaming and waving like a person whose life depends on it, but the police cars zoom past her like she's invisible. Not one stops. Not even a courtesy honk. Talk about terrible customer service. When she returns to the car, another infected person shows up because apparently the universe has a vendetta against her. She jumps in the car and floors it, but then, because why should anything go right today? A tire blows out and the car flips over in a spectacular crash that would make action movie directors jealous. When Jess regains consciousness, she's greeted with a sight that will haunt her forever. Sarah has transformed into one of those monsters. Jess has no choice but to kill her own friend to survive. And just when you think things can't get any worse, an infected person attacks her from behind and bites her. She manages to fight him off and escape, but the damage is done. On her way, she encounters a little girl, but realizes the kid is also infected, so she makes the difficult choice to keep running. Eventually, Jess finds what looks like an abandoned house and decides to hide there. She finds some water, takes a drink, and calls out to see if anyone's home. The answer comes when she slips in a pool of blood on the floor, always a bad sign, and a zombie appears out of thin air to attack her. After a struggle that tests every survival instinct she has, Jess manages to kill it. That's when a woman named Emma emerges from hiding, explaining she spent the entire night cowering in the house because that monster wouldn't leave. The kicker? The zombie was her sister's husband. Talk about awkward family dynamics. Emma tells Jess she needs to find her sister and niece, and suggests they travel together to a nearby cafeteria where people are apparently gathering to wait out this nightmare. Emma believes there's strength in numbers, which sounds great in theory. She also mentions that Jess desperately needs a shower because she's covered in blood, which is fair feedback. While Jess cleans up, Emma notices a suspicious wound on her stomach. Upon closer inspection, it's clearly a bite mark. Emma asks when it happened, and when Jess says a few hours ago, Emma is shocked because infected people usually transform much faster. Jess theorizes that her scientist mother used to give her lots of injections as a kid, and maybe that's why her body is resisting the virus. Emma agrees to help and take her to her mother, but with one strict condition: don't tell anyone about the bite, or people will panic and probably kill you. Fair enough. They make their way to the cafeteria and meet Roy, an obnoxious guy who immediately doesn't trust Jess. But Emma vouches for her, and they're allowed inside. There, Jess meets the rest of the group: Martha and her husband Fred, Lucy, and Brandon. When Jess asks if they're really planning to just sit there and wait for rescue, Brandon bitterly points out that nobody knows they're there and nobody's coming to save them. Martha explains that she and her husband are too old and sick to go anywhere else. Jess also meets a little girl named Grace and her older brother Mark. Mark mentions their uncle is a survivalist with a farm outside the city, which sounds like exactly where they should be, except they're stuck in this cafeteria. Roy, establishing himself as the world's worst middle manager, starts explaining the system and announces that he controls when people eat and drink. Then he accuses Fred of stealing an extra water bottle, which Fred denies indignantly, saying he'd rather die than accept anything from Roy. It's shaping up to be a really healthy group dynamic. The news comes on again, and presenter Amy delivers some devastating information. The vaccine called C1 is the source of the entire disaster. The dead virus used in manufacturing mutated after being injected into millions of people, and now everyone who took the vaccine carries the virus. Symptoms can appear anywhere from a week to less than 24 hours. Roy gloats about how the government always leads everyone to disaster, because of course he does. Suddenly, the lights start flickering, and Roy announces they need to check the generator because those monsters must have hit it again. He brings Brandon, and Jess volunteers to help. While Roy works on the generator, a zombie attacks him. Brandon shoots, but more zombies appear, and he and Jess have to abandon Roy and run back inside. Everyone is shocked by Roy's death, except Fred, who looks positively delighted that his nemesis is gone. Emma decides staying is pointless and they need to leave. Mark suggests they can all head to his uncle's farm. Fred chooses to stay behind with Lucy and his wife Martha, who's starting to show symptoms. They take Roy's car and hit the road. They finally find Emma's sister, who runs to meet them. But Megan has devastating news: her infected daughter bit and killed her. Emma is completely destroyed by this information and, in her grief, surrenders herself to the zombies. The others escape and stop at a shop, where Brandon goes in alone to investigate. They hear gunshots and find him being attacked. The zombies multiply, and Brandon makes the heroic decision to sacrifice himself so the others can escape. They flee, but the car breaks down, forcing them to continue on foot. When they finally reach Uncle Ben's farm, they discover it's overrun with zombies. The girls hide in a truck while Mark acts as bait, jumping into a car and clearing a path for them. They meet Uncle Ben, who takes them to his secret shelter in a bunker. Plot twist: this man isn't actually Ben. He's Ben's neighbor who lived in a caravan nearby. He confesses that the real Ben got bitten and he had to kill him and take his place. Oh, and he plans to blow everything up. Just great. The girls escape and reunite with Mark, who arrives just in time to save them. But Mark is dying. He makes Jess promise to take care of Grace and try to make the world better for her. Grace cries and begs him not to leave, but he dies after telling her he loves her. Jess and Grace continue alone until they meet Higgins, a dignified old man who saves them from zombies and takes them to his farm. He teaches Jess proper shooting techniques and gives them a sturdy vehicle to continue their journey. But then Jess discovers that Grace has been bitten. The infection is spreading rapidly. Higgins explains that because she's young, the transformation will be fast. Jess refuses to accept it, but eventually realizes what must be done. After they clear the road of zombies, Jess drives until she stops in the middle of nowhere. Through tears, she ends Grace's life, buries her, and continues on. Jess finally reaches Atlanta and finds the lab, but gets ambushed by a massive number of zombies. Just when all seems lost, a woman named Tori appears and saves her. Tori is lab security and knows Dr. Campbell. Inside the lab, Jess finds a recorded video message from her mother. Dr. Campbell, looking sick and exhausted, explains that everyone fled or got infected except her and Tori. She reveals that Jess survived because of rare antibodies in her blood. She never got sick as a child because of them. The mother confesses that the scientific team caused this disaster by creating a vaccine that mutated out of control. She destroyed the remaining vaccines and gave Tori a box containing the original virus. The plan: take Jess's blood and the original virus to scientists who can develop a cure. Dr. Campbell ends by saying if there's any hope in this world, it's Jess. Tori explains they must reach another lab in Washington. They only have a motorcycle, but they're determined. After clearing zombies from their path, the two set off together. The film concludes with a voiceover explaining that in July 2021, scientists confirmed Jess's blood produces the rare antibody. They merged it into something called CO-321, a secret government weather manipulation weapon. The tool meant for destruction became the perfect delivery system to spread the vaccine worldwide through the air. The final message: never lose hope. Even when everything falls apart, even when you have to say goodbye to everyone you love, even when you're riding a motorcycle through a zombie apocalypse, there's always hope.